Welcome to Wales Tech Week 2021. Thank you to our partners. Enjoy the session.
Good afternoon and welcome to Wales Tech Week. This session is called Mining the Gap, the Untapped Opportunity for Wales, and this is part of the Equality, Diversity and Inclusivity strand running through Wales Tech Week. And my name is John Wood. I'm the manager for Wales at Innovate UK, the UK's innovation agency. We're very, very proud to be a sponsor of Wales Tech Week this year. Today we have a fantastic panel of guests to talk about the untapped opportunity for Wales. We'll be starting with a keynote presentation from Trudy Norris-Grey, and then a panel of Trudy, Melin, Edomwonyi and Ellen Williams, very experienced experts in tech, to give us their thoughts on mining the gap. Just a word on equality, diversity and inclusion. For me, there's no greater topic to be discussing, no more important topic to be discussing, and it's a topic that Innovate UK takes very, very seriously. We have, over the past few years, introduced two programs called Women in Innovation and Young Innovators to highlight disproportionate lack of support for innovators from particular backgrounds, and those are incredibly successful programs. Women in Innovation, for example, since putting a spotlight, a highlight on the lack of female-led projects, Innovate UK has seen a 70% increase in female-led applications into our innovation programs. I'm delighted to announce that the Young Innovators program is now open for applications this year. It's open to 18 to 30-year-olds from any background. We acknowledge that younger people may find it difficult to gain the support, so that program is specifically for younger innovators. The next round of the Women in Innovation competition will be opening later in the year. I'm also delighted to announce that the Cardiff Capital Region City Deal are providing additional funding support to those two programs. So if you happen to be in Wales, there is a greater chance of success for you in those competitions if you would like to apply. If you would like to apply, I'll put some links into the chat for you to have a look at, or you can go and see my friends at the Knowledge Transfer Network, the KTN. So the way the session will run, we're going to listen to Trudy soon on her keynote presentation. Then we'll have a panel session to answer any of your questions. So if you do have questions from either Trudy's presentation or any questions for our panelists, please pop them into the chat, and I will coordinate them and put those to the panel. But enough from me. I'm delighted to introduce our keynote speaker, Trudy Norris-Grey. Trudy is an incredibly successful leader in tech. She's had roles with some of the biggest tech companies globally, although being a native of Swansea, but joining us today from the States. Trudy is chair of WISE, which I'm sure she's going to tell you all about, and she's a passionate advocate for the development of individual skills and encouraging women and girls to consider careers in STEM. So Trudy, over to you.
Thanks very much, John, and thank you all for the opportunity to talk to you today about diversity and inclusion. As you know, it's been a hot topic for a long time. Not just because it's right, but because it's a business imperative that we haven't got right yet. We're making some progress, but we've got more to do. And I want to encourage us all to do more on that front. It's a business imperative because when you get a broader, diverse group in the organization, there's no doubt about it, you get better business results. There's plenty of research out there now that tells you that more diversity, better diversity gives better business results. You better represent your customers, your partners, your employees have higher levels of engagement. And of course, by having a broader talent pool, you've got a broader access to the talent that you're looking for. So it really is an opportunity, I believe, for us to go after in terms of the untapped pool to address our digital deficit. Let's move to the next slide. As I said, we've got a digital skills deficit, and I think there's a link. And if there isn't a definitive link between the digital skills deficit and diversity and inclusion, there should be. And I hope I will go on to show you why. Let's just get into the context first of all. I'm sure you're all aware that the UK forgoes a huge amount of business opportunities, 140 billion when it comes to intelligent technologies, because we don't have the skills necessary to go after that opportunity. There's a nationwide skills shortage. Half of all enterprises, organizations, business leaders are saying, I just can't get the talent. And we need to close that digital skills gap as a priority. We need more software engineers. We need more people who can work on artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and so on. And we need those skills with what I believe are hard skills. Skills such as creativity, collaboration. We need the both to come together. And as I've said, I believe the largest untapped pool to go after when it comes to addressing the skills deficit in digital, that pool is women. 82% of the UK population join me in that belief. Next slide, please. Now, whilst I am going to talk about gender diversity, particularly today, I do want to emphasize that there's underrepresentation across the whole. If I think about ethnic minorities and other groups, we have got a deficit there too, particularly when it comes to leadership. And if we restrict the UK talent pool by not accessing all these groups of people, then we're stymieing our opportunity. We reduce our opportunity to make money. Next slide, please. Now, what have I done with this slide? What I've done is I've gone and I've tried to put some facts down on the table. And I've gone to ONS, the Office for National Statistics, and looked at women as a percentage of the STEM workforce in Wales. And I've picked out 4 categories. IT professionals, women represent just 16%. These are the latest stats. Just 16% of IT professionals in the UK. When it comes to engineering, that's 7.7%. When it comes to science and professional occupations, they're doing better. 36.6% of that workforce is female. And when we look at the leadership, the management levels across science, engineering, and tech, that number is 18.5%. So the numbers are not that great. Let's look at how they compare with the UK. Next slide, please. Now, it doesn't look much different. If you look at women in IT, 17% versus 16% for Wales. Engineering, UK is 11%, Wales is 7%. But when it comes to science and professional, doing a lot better. There's something working when it comes to women, encouraging women into science professional occupations, 47.4% compared with 36%. But when it comes to management, drop back by a point or 2 there for Wales. So my point here is that the numbers are small. The percentages are small. But if you've looked at the small print here, you'll see that we are making progress. Next slide, please. Now, when we look at the past decade, how have we performed across the UK? I've just picked two here, women in tech and women in engineering. We've gone up by almost 2 points when it comes to women in tech in the UK over the last decade. Now, that represents almost 100,000 women coming into the tech industry, which is a fabulous achievement. Really important when it comes to a growth industry. But you can see we're not making the inroads. A lot of men are joining the workforce at the same time. It's not a competition between men and women. It's about tapping women as well. And engineering, we've doubled the numbers in the UK. We've gone up to almost just over 56,000, and the percentage points are almost 5%. So we've doubled the numbers, but the percentage not increasing. So we're making progress, but it's slow. And when it comes to A-level, computing A-level, which one could argue is very important as we move forward, whether you go into tech, into computer science, or whether you're going to use tech as a fundamental part of your other occupation, maybe medicine, research, then this is an important A-level to consider. We've gone up by 1% in the UK. Next slide, please. Now, this is a busy slide, and let me just highlight it for you. Again, I've gone back to the data, ONS, Office for National Statistics, and asked, what's the stats saying when the question comes, well, surely women are not very good at these subjects. Well, let me put that to bed once and for all. Let's just quash that myth. Is this what this says in the UK, that when you compare females with their male counterparts and you look at A star or A passes, you'll see that across computing, physics, and further maths, women do better than their male counterparts. As I said, it's not a competition. But what I want to do is dispel the myth that women can't do these subjects. They absolutely can. Next slide, please. And how does that compare when I look at the Welsh data? Generally, the stats are the same. Women do well at these subjects. They do very well. Look at those percentages, A star, A plus, A star, A passes. But let me just alight on computing, just as by way of example. We had 30 females taking computer A level in the year 2020. You could fit all those into one classroom. We need a lot more. Yes, we need a lot more men, but we need a lot more women. So take away from these couple of slides, women can do these subjects. They do rather well at them, but we need a lot more to consider taking these important A-level subjects when it comes to open up career opportunities in STEM. STEM is not only a very satisfying a career for many, it's also highly rewarding. And I don't think we should shy away from that. It's rewarding and satisfying, which helps the individuals, it helps their families, it helps the communities of which they are a part, and of course it helps the country. So we really should consider opening up the opportunity for people to consider more STEM subjects. Next slide, please. So you may ask, why is there such underrepresentation? And I'll say to you, you probably know it all. I'm not going to tell you anything more than you already know, but I do want to start by saying, well, are we challenging some of these stereotypes? We all know that right from the outset, books and toys are different between the sexes. Societal conditioning is different. Our expected behaviors, what we wear, what we do, and of course, unconscious bias. But importantly, I wanted to pull out here is education, educators. And that includes parents and influential individuals in a student's career. Interestingly, and we've got more stats about this, is that both boys and girls are unaware of the STEM opportunities out there and the impact that having these kinds of skills and these careers can have on society, on things such as caring professions, if that's what's important to you. STEM can really help personal drivers when it comes to societal impact, if that's what drives you. Overall, we've had a lack of visible role models at all critical stages of our development. And of course, you're all aware, I'm aware, that there are non-inclusive processes and environments of which we are a part day in, day out, that we need to challenge. We need not only to include all talents, all ways of thinking, but we need to celebrate them and put them to use. Different ways of thinking can actually be business opportunities. And of course, what we do know is that, and the research out there, sadly, about this is that women have slower progressions through their career. And actually, when they do leave their career, they are not the alumni, the celebrated alumni that can really be role models and enterprise advocates that they should be for the workplace that they've just left. Next slide, please. So you may be asking, gosh, we've been at this for what seems like an age already, but we are changing, we are making progress. And I do want to share with you a few things that really work and where I would suggest that each one of us starts. Next slide, please. I represent WISE, Women into Science, Engineering, Technology, as well as careers such as construction and the built environment. And our patron is Her Royal Highness, the Princess Royal. And we've been, when I started this way back when, the number of women in STEM careers were in single digits as a percentage. Last year, I'll share with you in a moment, we got to 24.5% of women, women represent 24.5% of the workforce in STEM now. So we're making progress, but our next goal is to actually get to 30%. And as you all know, 30% is a magic number because it provides the nudge factor where people feel that they're not minorities, they're not the exception, but they are being listened to. So we want to get to 30% of the STEM workforce being women by the end of the decade. And we are really doing that by focusing from classroom right through to boardroom. Next slide, please. So what have we achieved today? So over the decades, we've actually got to a situation where we've got equal success and participation when it comes to female and male students studying STEM GCSEs. That's great. But more people doing STEM's got to be good for the economy. Secondly, I think you'll all know that there's a growing prowess when it comes to women in medicine. The majority of graduate entrants and exits are now female in the medicine, medical doctor career. Very exciting. And I want to share with you that last year we passed the 1 million mile mark when it came to women working in core STEM careers. That's over and above the women who are in medicine and health. So really, really doing well there. And what's more, of that 1 million women, we're seeing a lot more women going into entrepreneurial activities, setting up their own companies, SMEs, and they contributed a fabulous 85 billion to the economy. And that number's growing. And what have we done to help people get there? We've got programs that we call switch-in or switchers. Is that those people who want to retrain or reskill because they know that their skills need to be updated, or they just want to change careers because their current career is coming to an end for whatever reason, and they can see a great opportunity in STEM. So there are a lot of retrain and reskilling opportunities around there. Fabulous programs from the Open University who are doing a terrific job of recruiting female a third into some of their courses are females. If I think about the University of Arts in London, their MSc in creative computing, half the women who go into that course half the people are women. BSc in that course is women, is a third. So we've got these retraining and reskilling programs out there, and I've just mentioned a couple there. And of course, for those people who want to earn and learn, organisations such as the Manchester Met are opening it up with fabulous digital technology solutions apprenticeships, working with employers, of course, but also as an education provider, given the tools that these individuals and these employers need. So I've said to you that I do believe the biggest untapped pool that people should go after, leaders, organization heads, and entrepreneurs, is we should be going after women more and more. And if the percentage of women going into these STEM careers was the same as the number of men who are there, we have the opportunity to go after almost another 500,000 talent that could help us make more money from the untapped opportunity in intelligent technologies, which is 140 billion in the UK, as I've mentioned earlier on. So there's a real need. We should be doing this because it's the right thing to do, but also because it's a business imperative. And this can help everyone, the individual, their families, their communities, and their companies, and of course, the country. Next slide, please. So I've mentioned I'm chair of WISE, and we've got two major programs that I'd like to share with you today. And the first one is called My Skills, My Life. And this is a schools outreach program that encourages girls to consider careers in STEM. And we're making great headroom here. We've got 1,000 role models that these students can go search around and see if there are people like them doing jobs in STEM. So it encourages them, that says that there are people like me out there. I can do that. I won't be an oddball. I will be included and welcomed. We've had more than 10,000 students engage in this program, 350 schools and more than 50 companies. Really making progress here. And if you'd like to get involved in this, please let me know. Next slide, please. Now, the next one is really about the workforce. And 10 Steps is an outreach program. It's a program that works for employers to address the employment challenges that we have around inclusivity and diversity. If we are going to move this needle from 24% of the number being women to half, then we've got some fundamental shifts in culture that we need to address. And we're having real traction with this program. We've got financial institutions, banks, construction companies, technology companies, engineering companies, rail companies. Some of these companies are taking it internationally. It's working that well for them in the UK. They are not only shifting the dial, that's improving their brand, it's improving their financial results. It's actually helping them address what was previously an untapped business opportunity that they wanted to go after. So I really encourage all those people in the workforce, whether you're leaders or not, to really look at 10 Steps as a program that can bring about sustainable change. It's not a silver bullet. You won't get from 24% to 50% in a year. It will take some years, but you will see demonstrable change year in, year out on that journey. So I really encourage you to look at 10 steps. We are an expert in this area when it comes to tech, when it comes to engineering and science and the built environment. Next slide, please. So what we're all about is about creating a diverse and inclusive culture. Particularly today, I'm talking about women, but it's across all groups, all minority groups. And it's about attracting. What do we need to do when it comes to attracting more to consider careers in this, what I think is an exciting and rewarding career? I happened upon tech by chance decades ago. I don't think we should leave it to chance for everybody. Let people have the facts about what's out there for them. It's about recruiting, opening up, making sure that we use the right language in the effort to recruit diverse and inclusive. We know there's research been out there for some time here that we're not using the right language. We haven't been addressing all the pools. We haven't been challenging ourselves to step outside our comfort zone. And of course, it's about the development. How do we help people progress? Not only because it benefits them, but because it benefits the organization of which they are a part. So see progression there. And of course, we need to address the leaky pipe. There's some industries out there that have an aggressive, or what seems to be an aggressive culture that turns people off, women off, to staying in those cultures. And right now, when we've got, we're coming, I hope, to the end of this, the pandemic, is that once the furlough comes off, we must not lose talented women and men from the workforce, because they feel, do you know what, I've had enough. It's been hard. It's been doubly hard because of COVID. I'm just going to take a break. We'll lose that talent. You will lose that talent from the workforce when really you need it for the long term. And as I've mentioned, as people leave organizations, we need to make sure that they are alumni, vocal alumni for those organizations that help attract. They may help with mentoring when it helps at developing and so on. So we want to manage. WISE is all about managing the whole talent life cycle. Next slide, please. So the question here is an obvious one. Who's responsible for inclusion and diversity in your organization? Of course, we all are. We all have to call out the stereotypes, the prejudices, the bias. But we also must put in place programs that will bring about the change needed. So everybody is part of an aligned program, understanding the business case about why we do this thing, why it's important for everyone. Some people feel there's a backlash for those people, men, who may feel like, I'm not part of the next generation. Of course you are, but we need to include more people, particularly women, I'm arguing, and ethnic minorities and other disadvantaged communities. So my question to you is, what will you do? Will you pick up this program, 10 steps? Will you have an outreach to your local school through My Skills, My Life? I really encourage you to do that. So thank you very much. I'll now hand back to John. And again, thank you for your time.
Thanks very much, Trudy. A really, really thought-provoking and fascinating talk. So I'd like to welcome our other two panel members, and then we can have a bit of a chat about what's been discussed so far and any questions from the audience. So if I can welcome Melin Edomwonyi. Melin is the branding and UX expert, founder of Me Design, and the host of Creative Mornings Cardiff. Hi, Melin. And if I can introduce Ellen Williams, who is Social Media and Communications Officer for Disability Wales. Ellen is also a very seasoned blogger. If you haven't seen her blog, My Blurred World, I heartily recommend you go and have a read. It's a fascinating read. Ellen was also featured in BBC 100 Women List 2020. So a fantastic panel. Thanks for joining. And just to remind everyone who's watching, if you pop your questions for the panel in the chat, and then we can put them to everybody. So maybe I should start with a question. Do you need to be a tech expert to go into a career in tech? I mean, I ask the question because Trudy, you picked up on terminology. Are we recruiting, or are we putting people off by the language that we use in recruitment? Maybe I'll come to you, Trudy, first on that.
Absolutely, we do use inappropriate language. So, for example, in the past, I've seen companies say, "Are you an aggressive salesperson?" Actually, if you turn that into, "Can you deliver results for your customer?" that will be a much more inclusive way of encouraging people who don't see themselves as aggressive, but do see themselves as delivering results. So words in your job description, in your adverts, looking for recruitment, really do matter. Your first question when it comes to tech, actually, I'm not a technologist, although I've spent, dare I say it, almost 40 years in tech. I alighted on the tech industry. I trained to be an accountant because that's what I was taught back then, is if I wanted a professional career, I would either be an accountant, a lawyer, or a doctor. I chose accountancy. And actually, I was a finance manager into tech, but one of my managers said to me, "Actually, I think you'd be really good with customers. So why don't you come into this?" And I thought that it was a bit dirty being in sales. Actually, far from it. I had huge satisfaction on showing people the power of tech in terms of delivering what they wanted to deliver. And of course, yes, I did have to learn some tech. I did and need to understand what tech is capable of doing. But I would argue it's not difficult. We're using it most days ourselves, right? Adding a little bit of routine personal development to that. It's not hard. If you want to be a technologist as well, let's have a look at that. There's plenty of ways to learn those skills. Even when you're actually earning, you can do those skills. So I hope I've answered your questions. We can do a better job of being more inclusive in our language, and you definitely don't have to be a technologist to get into tech.
Perfect, thank you, Trudy. And Melin, perhaps I'll come to you with a similar question. I mean, you run your own agency, so that's a huge gamut of non-tech activities. Same question, really. The life experience and other things that you have to bring into your business beyond tech. If you'd just like to tell us about that.
So I agree with Trudy about the language, 100%. I think also to reply your question about whether you have to come from a tech background to exist or work in tech. I come from a creative background and I didn't study technology, but I've always integrated my work with digital and technology. So as soon as I graduated, which was a long time ago now, I went into web, and that created a path for me to keep working in digital, and that ended up in leadership positions. But even in creative sector, it was difficult to exist as women. So I know we are here to talk about tech, but I believe that creative sector goes hand in hand with tech, and is the major supporting sector to tech is creative sector. So like they are actually one in my mind. that even in creative industries, there isn't a lot of women. As you know, what Trudy show is, even though STEM and tech is not that different in creativity, unfortunately. And again, another thing Trudy highlighted is that yes, that's more in creative sector, is that a lot of girls start or study creative, let's say design at universities, but then they fall off the ladder. So they don't climb up, they don't go into leadership positions. And there can only be one answer to that. One of them is what Trudy mentioned about, inclusive workspaces. So actually caring about whether these women are supported in their workplaces. Because if we think about the lack of women in these spaces, in workplaces, in the environments that we expect women to grow, are they being nurtured? Are they being supported? So I'm guessing that's one of the reasons. And then the other one is, do we as women as well speak up? So I absolutely loved what you said, Trudy, at the end, because that was one of my notes, is that everyone is responsible for that. So in the last agency that my role was management and then directorship, I started off as being the only woman in the whole agency, and I did that for I don't know how many years. But I think the more you speak up about not wanting to be the only woman, or sort of highlighting what roles can other women fit in the company, and like not be afraid of having those conversations or giving those nudges, and asking to have a say in the next recruitment. I think it's not just the people in the management. I think you can have a say as an employee as well, and you can make a point of it so that your managers can hear it and be aware of it, because if nobody says anything, they will keep doing what they know best, and they may not go out of their way to actually care about how to support their women employees.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you very much, Melin. And really valuable points about putting your story across. And so perhaps if I come over to Ellen then, who is an expert on commenting on your experience. Ellen, perhaps if you could just tell us a little bit about how your career has developed, I guess, from putting your story out there and some of your blogs that I alluded to earlier.
Yeah, well, I started blogging when I was 16 years old, and it stemmed out of a passion for writing and wanting to raise awareness and help others. And through doing that, I gained more understanding of online communication and website development and things like that, and that then led to my career now as a social media and communications officer. So it all fed into this development, I guess, and sharing my story over the past 6 years online has been really empowering, and I think it's been really valuable for me in terms of realizing that there are other people out there in a similar situation. And it's allowed me to find role models, which I didn't have when I was growing up. So that kind of refers to what Trudy was saying earlier about the importance of having role models that are out there saying that they are in these positions and these things are possible.
I mean, that's a really good point. Going back to some things that Trudy was saying, how it was your passion for writing and telling your story led you into developing some of those other skills to put those stories out there, and I guess that's sort of part of the retraining and reskilling aspects that Trudy was mentioning. I was going to perhaps come back to Trudy and talk about interaction at different ages. Because I mean, one thing we certainly see through children, if you test 5-year-olds, 95% of them score very highly on creativity. And if you test children, or if you test adults, it's about 1% score very highly on creativity. So something's going wrong in that pathway. And I'm very struck. I've got 2 daughters, young daughters, and I'm struck by how quickly societal interaction teaches them. My daughters instantly will tell you that teachers are women and firemen are men. And my girls, my oldest is 9 and my youngest is 7. And what we do is try and challenge that, and all we can do is challenge that. But I wonder the advocacy piece that you mentioned. How can people be going out there and talking to young women at different ages of their career and repeating these messages and showing these role models? How can we do those things more effectively?
Well, John, I think the first thing to say is we all should be doing exactly what you're doing, is challenging. Is that if we are going down a societal norm, then we need to open and say, well, is that a real acceptable norm? And I think that goes for many things in life. But if we're talking about women and disadvantaged groups, we really have to keep emphasizing that. And certainly when it comes to the workplace, we have to do the same. It gets more difficult because somehow, as you get older, as you said, you've mentioned creativity, but as you get older, we've got things to lose, or we think that we're going to lose something. And that's when we start constraining ourselves, because we think that we have to fit in for fear of, let's say, losing our job or not getting the next promotion or not being part of the in crowd. And actually what I've learned over the years, and it's been a real joy to watch this, is that when people do challenge, you give other people the voice for them to challenge, and it allows that single voice to become a multitude of voices that people on the other side, as it were, I hate sides, but say, sorry, help me understand what you're trying to say here. And all of a sudden, as soon as you've got it on the table, you can talk about it. And by the way, each one of us should be open. Even though we've been the one to bring up the challenge initially, we have to be open to change our views as well. So the job is to constantly challenge in the knowledge that it's not about losing something if you challenge. It's about gaining something, not just in terms of opening your mind and having a better thought process, but actually you're allowing others to be who they are. And I'll give you for a great example that I was, when I headed up, I was the first female to head up a major organization, a tech organization in the UK. And I thought, and this is going back into the year 2000s, and I thought I'd introduce flexible working, thinking that this would help a lot of women, and I would stop them from losing them from the organization. Interestingly, the biggest uptake were men. Now, I didn't expect that. It was a joy to see, because by having men there, it actually encouraged more women to go and step forward. So you never know, by stepping forward and providing voice, you will add positively to outcomes and to the way that we work.
Brilliant. Yeah. Melin, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I mean, something that Trudy said sort of inspired me into, and the questions that Trudy asked towards the end inspired me into thinking that perhaps there needs to be programs in schools and universities. I know that for example, Cardiff Met, the graphic communications are running a program where they bring in professionals to talk to, and they make sure there is this connection with the industry. But maybe that can be done from a diversity point of view. Maybe it can be introduced, like, I don't know if this is just my idea. I can't really change the educational system in this country, but I think from every fact and data that Trudy showed, it looks, and from what you said, John, about your kids and your daughters, it needs to start really early. So whatever change we're going to do, first of all, we need girls to believe they can be anything that they want to be, and secondly, we perhaps and this was something that I think we've chatted previously, from diverse backgrounds. So no matter what your ethnicity is, or, you know, what area you come from in a city, or do you know what I mean? Like every city has like, oh, this isn't the posh area. So even if you don't come from a posh area, it doesn't mean that you can't achieve a certain role in a certain place. I think these are the things that keeps people away from, you know, aiming high or being in the spaces that are, you know, more visible online and things like creativity. People think that to be in creative industries, you have to have rich parents, for example, because you don't get creative jobs that easily, or to be an artist, you need to do that. I think there is lots of this perceptions attached to certain types of jobs that can only be changed if there is an active effort on trying to change those, maybe by using education. So maybe by, you know, programs with people like Trudy and your company, by educating or creating those partnerships, perhaps with schools and universities. That's my 2 cents, because I'm just thinking, it just upsets me that, you know, you're saying that your daughters have already started thinking that they can, you know, they might just be they can be teachers and they can't be a fireman, you know, and it's going to be the same. You know, kids might be thinking, oh, scientists are, you know, I'm not going to be a scientist, I'm going to be a mother. So yeah, so I just got a little bit emotional.
Well, you know, and quite rightly so. I mean, I would say I wouldn't worry too much about my daughters. My younger daughter
exactly
has been watching the football with me, and she very quickly noted that if the referees earn quite a good amount of money as well, but they don't do as much running around, maybe she'll become a referee rather than
Fabulous.
So she's got a head screwed on. Just a reminder to everyone, we've probably got about 10 minutes left to get your questions in for the panel if you'd like to ask a question. I'm going to ask a question about the pandemic, and I'm ever an optimist. It's been an awful time for all of us, but I hope that there's some positives coming out of the pandemic, and I wonder, perhaps I'll come to you, Ellen. You know, we're in a virtual world. You know, so many of us have been online, and certainly some of the events that we've run previously, we're starting to see attendees who would not have attended some of our physical events. Have there been positives coming out in terms of inclusion from the pandemic, as far as you have experienced?
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, when things moved online, it made a lot of things more inclusive and more accessible to a lot of people. I started my job now during a pandemic, and it meant that I could work remotely and that flexible working was in place. So that was definitely a huge positive thing about being able to step into a new career. And as well, through working in this job, we've been able to, as an organisation, we've been able to offer more communication opportunities for people and hold events online that people across Wales have been able to come to when they might not have been able to before because of mobility issues or issues with travelling and things like that. So I think it's definitely been a positive in a lot of ways, and I hope that that can remain as we come out of it now, that we take the things that we've learned during the pandemic about accessibility and inclusion for disabled people and let it remain as the world opens up again.
Absolutely. I really hope we can. Trudy, perhaps You might have some comments on how we can ensure that we don't fall back to what was business as usual in 2019.
I do think the genie's out of the bottle. There's no going back. It's a question about how we've accelerated beyond our wildest dreams, the ability to be flexible. So we really got to keep that, as you said. Now, some of the things I worry about, and here there is a positive, is that if there are, in the pandemic, when everybody sort of locked down physically and also the P&L and the balance sheet. So, for example, some people removed training or reduced training. Now's the time to really open that up again, because there's opportunities that need addressing. So we really need to have a visible commitment to diversity and inclusion from organizations and their leadership. And that needs to translate into things. Saying it is great, and I encourage that, but you have to actuate to the future. You can't talk your way to the future. So, for example, if training is important to, in this instance, women, and we did a research recently, people on furlough, what was important to training was right up there. So let's make sure that we put the training in place. That aligns with the business needs, of course, but actually let's go out and make sure that we are including all, not just the usual candidates, but all the people that we definitely want to have there. The second thing that we need to do is the networking. I'm looking at Ellen here right now, and I'm learning a lot about Ellen. Looks like you're a harpist, Ellen. Sometimes it's been embarrassing when you see the kids scurrying around and you're thinking, oh no, I'm trying to concentrate and look professional here. Well, actually, some of the benefits of that is that you do understand people's lifestyle a whole lot better by being in their homes. So let's make sure we build on that network. So we're learning about people. The more you learn, the easier it is to be inclusive. So let's make sure. And as I said earlier on, it's a real. I'm really challenging to ask people in the audience to really champion a program. Pick your program. I've put 2 out there, My Skills, My Life, one for schools and the other one, 10 steps for the workplace. Pick it. Go after one. And if it's not that, perhaps you've got another one that you want to champion, but really actuate to the future. Because people, we need more leaders. And actually people and leaders love to see initiative. So go after it. Have the confidence. It's really worthwhile.
And Melin, any comments on the positives coming out of the pandemic for?
Yeah, absolutely. So I run an event, as you said, and I found that like Ellen mentioned, we had more attendees. People felt more themselves. People, especially mothers, I found out that mothers found it, they've joined with their babies and kids running around, but they could still be present. They could just mute themselves and still be in the room. So, and from a diversity point of view, let me say something as the only person of color in this room, is that there is a lot of spaces that people of color sort of decides not to exist because there is nobody like them and in those rooms. And I, as an event organizer and host, I have heard this firsthand from people. And I didn't know this existed, to be honest with you, because I had to exist in those places from very young age. I haven't had the perception of being a different color than my colleagues and acquaintances. So I haven't, unfortunately, I haven't noticed that. But when I became an event organizer, that was something that I was informed by some of the attendees. So now I realize the importance of diversity, because if people don't see that there are people like that in your organization or in your events, they will feel less comfortable joining. So I found that because of the inclusivity feeling of having online events, it just made people a little bit more relaxed to be themselves and to join, because they didn't have to go through what they would normally go through in a physical space. So we had more people of color and different ethnicities join, was my observation, because I think in physical spaces it gets a little bit more uncomfortable. So yeah, like Trudy said, we can be a little bit more ourselves, and there is when you see someone in someone's home, and I think you can relate to them a little bit more, so you don't just judge them with what they look like. You can sort of understand, oh, they come from, oh, this is a creative person, oh, Ellen is a musician perhaps, and maybe she writes music, or maybe she likes singing, and you can sort of start those conversations easier. So yeah, absolutely, I think it helped from that perspective.
Perfect. There you go. We've got some positivity. Well, I mean, the whole chat has been about positivity, but some positivity from the pandemic. So that's a great place. So just before we wrap up the panel, Trudy, perhaps I'm just going to come back to you very quickly. Where should we be in 12 months' time? Have you got a challenge out for the people watching?
I'd like to have some of you on this panel next year telling us what you've done to bring about change when it comes to inclusion and diversity, because the more stories and the more people doing this, the better the voice will be, and the better the change will be, and the more sustainable that change will be. So please, out there, who of you is going to help us and represent the move by being on this panel?
Super. So a challenge to everyone watching. That's Wales Tech Week 2022. We want some of you to come and tell your stories of how things have changed, how your organizations have grown as a result from what you've heard today. So I think
Can I give a small practical way of doing that?
Of course you can.
So I don't think that it's easy to start looking at your organization. So perhaps start with a list of things that you should focus on, or you're lacking from a diversity and inclusive point of view. And I think it's not easy to just tackle everything at once, because maybe this is the first time you're thinking about this. So I hope that it's not, but if you do, that's okay. Maybe start with making a list of what you're lacking in your organization and start focusing on them one by one. Try and tackle, I don't know, focus like half a year or a year on each segment, because and don't do it for the sake of it. Diversity for the sake of is like the worst thing, because you make people feel bad, you make your current employees bad, and anyone that you hire or get involved feel bad. So you don't want to do that. It needs to be like a real change. If you're doing it, it shouldn't be for show. And if you want to do real change, it's probably going to be really slow. Like Trudy said, it's going to take time and energy, but you can do that by tackling each segment one by one.
Perfect. Thank you, Melin. Exactly right. This is not a checkbox exercise, as Trudy quite rightly points out. This is about productivity and successful business, equality, diversity, inclusivity, different experiences, different backgrounds. That's how successful businesses happen. So thank you all so much for your participation. Really, really interesting discussions, really great outcomes and some positivity at the end there. So thank you to everyone for attending, and hopefully you'll enjoy the rest of what Wales Tech Week has to offer. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Rewatch all of our sessions online. Thank you to our partners.